Hello, friends. Day 18 of 75 Refined. The quote of the day comes from David Goggins. It says, "Motivation is crap. Motivation comes and goes. When you are driven, whatever is in front of you will get destroyed." I like David Goggins. He's one of those kind of chew the meat, spit the bones kind of guy because he's not perfect in any by any means, and he's got some really good stuff, and he's got some stuff that I probably wouldn't necessarily agree with, but yeah, his book Can't Hurt Me is pretty decent. Some really rough parts in there, but it's a decent book. All right, so day 18. Let's get the old readers on. All right, so this is we're judges 8 through 19. So there's a couple things that we're looking at. So uh, with Joshua, everything was stable, right? Joshua, he was a good leader, ruling everybody, getting them into the territory. But with Judges, everything is unraveling. Judges 17:6 says, "In those days there was no king of Israel. Everyone did whatever seemed right to him," and that is kind of the theme for the whole book. It's a wild time. So Judges 8, it gets into kind of picking up where we left off with Gideon. And Gideon, what he says towards the end, he says, "I will not rule over you." And then he goes on to say, the Lord will rule over you. But then comes verse 27. Gideon made an ephod, and all of Israel prostituted themselves by worshiping it there. So while he refused a crown, he still built a snare for the people of Israel. And then we have, so if you were to ask the question, who is the first king of Israel? Many people would say, oh, it was King Saul. Technically, Abimelech, the self-appointed king, but it is King Saul because he's the one appointed by God. But uh, he had what a rule he had. 70 brothers were murdered, and this was the first attempt at a monarchy, and it was soaked in blood. When the leadership is seized instead of given, it creates chaos. Then we get into Judges chapter 10. Once again, and this is again that recurring theme. It says here, the Israelites again did what was evil. Again, this is nothing. There's nothing new under the sun here. These are all repeated sins. They keep going back to the old gods of the area, Baal, Ashtoreth, all that. Then we get into Jephthah. This one I want to take a moment with because this one gets a little squirrely for some people. Once again, going back to that book, um, he's got a moral monster, and then the follow-up, which I've not read the follow-up book. He's got a vindictive bully. I've not read that book, but I have read the other book. He's got a moral monster by Paul Copan. Great book, and so we'll kind of get into a little bit of this. So in Hebrews 11:32, it actually includes Jephthah among the faithful. So when you have like the Hall of Faith, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, all these people going before Noah, even Abel is listed. Rahab, Jephthah is among those, and so is Samson. And we'll get to Samson in a moment. But Jephthah is listed among the faithful here. But this is where it's weird. In Judges 11, not Hebrews 11, but Judges 11, 30 through 31, he says, "Whoever comes out of the doors of my house will belong to the Lord, and I will offer him as a burnt offering." But then his daughter comes out. Now, this is a really hard passage to wrap around, but here's the thing. First of all, child sacrifice and human sacrifice was explicitly forbidden in Israel. So, what are we doing here, right? If you break down the verses here, so again, child sacrifice in Deuteronomy 12:31 and 18:10, we know it's condemned, right? You can't do it. In 11:39 of Judges, it said, "He did to her as he had vowed." The emphasis follows immediately after that. She had no relations with a man. And it's interesting because she said that she was going to go to the mountains for 2 months with her friends to mourn her virginity. Um, and it's very, very plausible that what this was, that it was a devoted, excuse me, it was a life devoted in consecration to the Lord offered, quote, like a burnt offering in total dedication, not literally slaughtered. There are many scholars who kind of follow that direction just because of the context of this seems to suggest that. Is it possible that he did sacrifice her? Yeah, it's certainly possible. This is also where we get into the idea of the Bible has many things that are descriptive versus prescriptive. I know we talked about that before, like with Lot and his daughters, for example. These are things where the Bible is describing things that happened, but is not saying, hey, you should go and do likewise. Don't do that, right? And this is something that was absolutely against Scripture. Now, if this was just holy consecration to God and temple service or whatever it is, sure, that's different. And again, many scholars believe that this may be explicitly what they're talking about. I shouldn't say explicitly, implicitly what they're talking about here. So that's just something to gnaw on as you're going through chapter 11. In chapter 12, we have a civil fracture. This is 42,000 people die because they couldn't say a word properly. And let's actually look at that real quick. So this is chapter 12. Let's turn there. Judges chapter 12. And that's verse number 6 here. Many of you may have already seen this. So verse number 6. And I'm reading out of the Christian Standard Bible, just the Bible that I happen to be reading. It's a good translation. If you have any questions about translations, I actually have a blog post about reading the Bible on my website. If you go to thehighway.church and you click on resources, go to New Believers, click on reading the Bible. I actually break down Bible translations in there. Not super in-depth or exhaustive, but it gives you an idea of kind of what to look for when it comes to Bibles. My wife told me that I touch my face too much. Maybe it's a nervous twitch. I don't know. But sometimes my face is itchy. Here's what it is. So, verse number 6, they told him, please say Shibboleth. If he said Sibboleth, because he could not pronounce it correctly, they seized him and executed him at the fords of the Jordan. And so 42,000 men, because they couldn't say the word properly. And so they were killed. Hopefully I wouldn't be killed based on how I pronounced it. Who knows? And then we get into Judges chapter 13. This is cool because we see the I am appear once again. Look for that in Scripture. It's interesting. And it may come off as something that's, what's the word I'm looking for? It may just seem like a coincidence, but it's just, I just like how it reads in Judges 13. So Manoah got up and followed his wife. When he came to the man, he asked, are you the man who spoke to my wife? I am. And then we later found that this was not just the messenger of the Lord, this was the Lord, or the angel of the Lord. And it's interesting whenever you see the term angel of the Lord, because there's this meme that goes around. I know Wesley Huff, if you follow him online, he likes to talk about this, is that there's this meme that talks about biblically accurate angels, and it's got the wheel of the eyes and the multiple wings and the different, so these terrifying creatures. Well, the word angel oftentimes is referring to what something does, not what it is. Because there's cherubim, there's seraphim, there's archangels, but an angel means messenger, basically. And so when you have the commander of the Lord's army shows up, it's the same as the three angels of the Lord that showed up with Abraham, and two of them left to go to Sodom and Gomorrah, which we'll get back to Sodom and Gomorrah in a moment here as a parallel. But so an angel is what you do, it's not who you are, or what you are, rather. So once again, angel of the Lord, it's just something to kind of, mull over. I'm hoping that you're getting a lot out of these. I'm trying to give you a little bit more information here. If you hear kids yelling in the background, that's because it's my son with his friend. So, why do you ask me my name? Verse 18 says, since it is beyond understanding. Other translations render that as the word Wonderful. The Hebrew root points to something that's incomprehensible or extraordinary. Then in 1322, we are certainly going to die because we've seen God, it says. He does not say an angel. He does not say an angel. That's that same pattern in Genesis 16, Genesis 22, Exodus 3. The angel speaks as God, receives sacrifice, ascends in flame, and in Exodus 3, the angel of the Lord appears and says, I am who I am. Judges 13, we get into the announcing of Samson's birth. This is not just a messenger. This is someone who is divine. Before Bethlehem, before Nazareth, already present, already active, already I am. This matters because the deliverers in Judges are flawed, but the one behind them is not flawed. All right, now let's talk about Samson, the superhero of the Bible, or the superhero of the Old Testament. He was set apart from birth, okay? The boy will be a Nazarite to God from birth. And remember, we talked about the Nazarite vow way before. Don't go near corpses. Stay away from anything from the vine. So wine, grape juice, grapes themselves. And don't cut your hair. This is a specific vow. Samson took this Nazarite vow from birth. And this is an interesting thing. We see throughout now we just focus on the cutting of the hair, but you see as Samson's going up, he's at these parties, so he's drinking, and when he kills the lion and then goes back and scoops out the honey, now he's near a carcass. All right, so that's two of the three already broken and violated. So what's the last one? It's the hair. So the Nazarite vow, or I should say, the thing about Samson was not just the hair; it was all three. But the last straw, if you will, the last cord that to be cut was his hair of the Nazarite vow. And it says in 1620, but he did not know that the Lord had left him. Man, that's terrifying. Think about this, okay? When you get into compromise, and here he was compromising with Delilah, when you get into compromise in your life, and it said he did not know that the Lord had left him. Man, what compromises in our lives where we just don't know that the Lord has left us? Man, search your heart. Man, it's got to be humbling. It's wild. The compromise of Delilah can get us. Watch yourselves. And then at the very end, man, what he's his eyes have been gouged out. He's a prisoner. Now he's in the temple of Dagon, and there's all these men there, and he leans up against the pillar. He's like, God, remember me one last time. And he brings down the temple, and he dies. He dies delivering Israel. But once again, this is just a temporary rescue. There's no full transformation. Wrapping it up here, getting through the last few chapters. In 17 through 19, there's more collapse. We have hired priests, homemade religion, moral horror. I mean, and this is where we're starting to mirror Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis 19. Israel, God's chosen people in their land, are now starting to look like Sodom. And once again, we see in 17:6, there was no king. There was no king. This is not political commentary. This is theological. Okay, there was no king. There was nobody to lead them. And then, so as we begin to wrap up the book here, or the book of Judges, we have 2 chapters left, and so we're going to see chapter 19 ends with kind of a shocker, and so we're going to get into what that means and kind of how this all crescendos after chapter 19. So it's a wild ride. So tomorrow we'll wrap up 20 and 21. Then we'll get into the book of Ruth, and so we're going to go on from there. And then we'll get into 1 Samuel as well. All of that's tomorrow. So there's a lot happening there. So, and remember, and even 21, Judges 21 ends with this. Sorry, my window's open. I'm just looking out there. The cops are out there. I don't know what they're doing. But it says, in those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what seemed right to him. And again, that's that common theme. So as we close this out, the land is theirs, but the heart is unstable. There is no king. They're looking for a king. They're going to be looking for a king. We're going to see that tomorrow as we read after we finish with the book of Ruth, and we get into 1 Samuel, where they're looking for a king. But guess what? The king still isn't going to solve all their problems. We're going to see that as we get into 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, the books of Chronicles, all kind of deals with all that, how the kings don't actually solve the problem. But there is a king that is coming that will be the true deliverer. All right, and that's important. Foreshadowing, again, it's Jesus. So that's what I have for us today, friends. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, snide remarks, please leave them in the comments below. And once again, I like engaging in the comments. Leave more comments, people. I like seeing what you guys are saying, what you're getting out of this, getting out of these videos, getting out of your readings, what other books you are reading for your devotional time, as well as how the things are going with the water, the diet, and exercise, all of that stuff in your prayer time. So I want to know how that's going, and what wins you're having, what challenges you're facing, and let's walk through this together. Also, don't forget to check out the Facebook group if you're not already a part of that. I've been posting the links to these videos there. But yeah, let's join this community. Come around, and we'll chat. But we will see you tomorrow. This is another earlier video. I like doing these earlier, but it doesn't always work that way. All right, talk to you soon.